welcome to this session from Seven's Referee on refereeing the breakdown. Over the last few years, there have been a number of changes at the breakdown, and we are privileged today to be joined by somebody who spent quite a lot of his career chasing them around the pitch, either as a scrum half at Harlequins or as a professional referee with the RFU and World Rugby, Mr. Karl Dickson.
So, I mean, probably the big thing to say about the breakdown is nothing has really changed. Everyone's come out with the new variations or law variations here and there. It's still the same law. We're just looking probably to tighten up our interpretation and how we reward and what we're looking for. But as I said, nothing really has changed too much. But you've probably seen from the start of the Premiership and even the start of the Southern Hemisphere, the referees, it took a little bit of time for the referees to get used to this and the players. And you probably saw a lot more penalties in the first 1 to 3 rounds of both Southern and Northern Hemisphere competitions. And then I think we got to a sort of level where literally it kind of sort of settled and everybody bought into the process. So it's got a lot better recently, which I'm sure you'll probably all agree. So sort of, again, I'll go through the philosophy of it and little bits and pieces, and then it'll come through with some of the clips and exactly what we're looking at. But the first sort of slide, reward the attack and defence in equal measures. And that comes to equity of the game. That's not just at the breakdown, that's everywhere. So we're looking to reward attack and defence equally. And that's about being in the best position. And you'll probably hear this position quite a lot, being the best position to do that. We've got to look at both. And you'll probably hear me again say this sort of along the lines of, it's about the story of the game. What you do in the first minute, you've got to be doing the 80th minute. And if you're watching the game or your assessor's watching the game or someone's watching it, they go, what you do in the first minute, does it match up with the rest of the game? So, and that's where it comes to rewarding the attack and defence. Have you done that equally through the game, or have you just been looking at one sort of team and thinking, I've got to keep going with it, rewarding the attack, because I want that continuity. Certain games, you're going to get that imbalance of where, you get a scrappy game, you're going to have to roll your sleeves up and really referee that breakdown. And that involves both teams. Keep the players legal at the breakdown as per current law. Again, as I mentioned, the law hasn't changed. And again, this is about being in a position. Can you get in a position to see the ball? Can you get in a position to be able to prevent players from doing something potentially illegal? Can you get there early enough to stop players doing that? And then if players are illegal to start with, or they are legal, can you talk them off quick enough that hasn't affected the ball speed? Or is it a case of, again, the story of the game, if I've set the game up right, I've penalised early doors in the game, the first 10 or 15 minutes, and again, we'll go back to this, how you set up the game, what kind of game do you want? And it's about setting up that game well, and if you can penalise early, then you set up the game for the rest of it and players know where they stand. So if you get a quick not rolling away penalty, players are going to think, oh, actually, I might hesitate to actually go and hold on, to go for the ball to get a holding on penalty to jackal, and therefore you might get that continuity in a different way. And then give understandable decisions. And again, this leads into, sometimes it gets a little bit funny with give understandable, because what one person understands might be different to what other people understand. But looking at the general public, and again, it comes down to the story of the game, how you've set it up. If you've given a not rolling away in the first minute and people can see why you've done it, and you give another one in the 75th minute, people go, okay, I kind of get that, because what you did at the start of the game, you've kept refereeing, and I understand why you've done that. And obviously, with our signalling and things like that, it helps, as well as you give the signal and you explain why you've done it. Listen, the jackler is fine. He's in a strong legal position. However, the player's just not rolling away. So I can't reward you, and we move on. And I think that helps with both teams as well. So it sort of accumulates, again, the philosophy. What we're looking at probably, and this can be attributed to all levels, is what I've mentioned, is how you set up the game is key. How do you want to set up? What kind of game do you want? If you want a free-for-all at the breakdown and you want people to go hard, well, then that's how you're going to set up the game, and that's what you can hit for 8 minutes. That might not be what you want. From my personal point of view, I like to set up the game, whereas I like to get the tackler out of the way. So I'm not even going to look at jackler, anything else, and tackler's out of the way. because I want the quick ball. I want that continuity. I want the nines to be able to get there and play, because ultimately that's the entertaining part of the game. And then obviously, as I said, it mentions with the story of the game, how's that story at the end of the game, no matter if it's breakdown, scrum, line out, does the story match up? Or do you look at some penalties and go, that's not how I refereed the whole game? And that's something you probably can, on review with your PRs or your coaches, look at some of your decision making going, have I been consistent in what I've done the whole game? Has that story matched up? And I think it's key and how you set up the game. And as I mentioned, we'll go into it, where you put yourself in order to referee the breakdown, what position you're in to referee it. So going into the priorities, as I mentioned, we're looking at, which I don't think has changed, tackler, release and roll away. We're looking at east to west. No crawl by the carrier, so not getting that extra roll or extra little crawl to stop the jackler coming over. Then the jackler in a strong position, looking for a holding on penalty. Any attacking off feet, so are they trying to seal it or stop the competition? Attack inside entry, and then as always, foul play is going to override any of these technical aspects, which again we'll go into a little bit later. But that's kind of the sequence we look at and how we're trying to referee that 1 to 2 second breakdown, looking at all these 6 or 7 things. So as you can imagine, that split second you get to referee, you've got to look at a lot of things, but that's what makes you better and better and get that better picture as you move through the levels and as you're looking to improve at the breakdown as a referee. So looking at the tackler, release and roll, again, no change to our previous philosophy on how we've refereed this. Tackler assist must show clear release, and that might vary from referee to referee. If you're not in a position to see that clear release, you might referee it slightly different. But from my point of view, you want to see a really clear release and then back on the ball. And then the tackler must release and move immediately. And again, that's to stop them rolling. The first one you'll see here, 8 on the wrong side, tries rolling out, but slows the ball down, and it's an easy advantage to give. So we see it again. Ideally, we want the 8 to roll out as quick as he can, not prevent the ball coming away. And it's a really easy decision. And we're looking at east to west, but I appreciate sometimes he might roll east to west and interfere with that player coming in. So that's where we look at the sort of, well, he might be a little bit in the side, but he has tried rolling. The ball's there, let's play away. We don't need to blow that penalty. But it might be a case of he's rolled the east to west, he's affected the clear out, the guy is over the ball looking for the jackal, but we can't reward him because even though he has done that east to west, he's chose to tackle like that. He's fallen that side, so we're more likely to penalise him for not rolling away, even though he has tried to. So as you'll see, more awareness of where they move post contact as we're looking at east to west for these tackler. But as always, once they've made the tackle, they choose to fall that way. And if they choose to fall that way, they've got to get themselves out of the way. And if they impede or anything like that of guys coming in, that's where we might look to penalise them. Move away from the ball so it's nice and clear for the 9 to come in and get the ball away. And it might mean that they are still lying on the wrong side, but the ball is there available. The 9 can pick the ball up and pass it where we're going to play on. It's only when it causes an issue there that we might look to penalise. But if we can get the ball away, it might be a quiet word going, listen, we need to start getting guys away from the ball or stop rolling that side. If it's not interfered or anything, we don't want to make a massive issue of it. But again, it comes back down to that, again, setting up the game. Those couple of penalties early on that we give for tackler not rolling might set up the game and people might actually realise, actually, I've just got to get out of here quicker and it will stop people competing and we get that fluid game. Ball carrier, again, nothing's really changed here. They've got to present an immediately with one dynamic movement. You've probably seen a few of, this happens probably more in 7s, I think, but you've seen a few now in the 15s, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere games, which I think we're going to show you. It's happened in Northern Hemisphere, but it never really got penalised. And you've seen a lot more get penalised now with people taking that extra roll or that little elbow crawl, which prevents the jackler from getting over the ball and ultimately stops him from competing. And I think there's an example from this weekend, last weekend, in the New Zealand-Australia game, which I think is going to be the video coming up. So you see Rico Arne comes up, gets tackled, should be releasing the ball there, crawls, moves along, which ends with 5 off his feet. So the first offence there is the crawl. Luckily, Australia come away with the ball and they play on. But the first offence is clearly, you see the 11 gets tackled, should turn and release the ball, but takes that extra crawl, which prevents number 5, Gold, being in a strong position to potentially jackal. So that should have been a penalty against New Zealand for crawling. And again, it is being refereed a little bit more than it used to be, and you've seen a few more penalties, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, for it. Squeeze ball, again, squeeze ball, we kind of use this. I know obviously age group stuff, they're not allowed to do it, but squeeze ball a higher level normally means you're isolated, or you're trying to buy yourself that little bit of time. So we want the ball to be available. So if they go into that squeeze ball, we're looking for them to present the ball nice and quickly. If they don't, the jacker potentially can clamp on them, and he seals, arms around the body, hands on the ball. That's what we're looking for. He can't just clamp onto the body and lift the body. He actually has to be on the ball, and it makes it a really easy penalty to give for holding on if he's clamped around on the ball. And as I said, when players get into that position, it's normally because they're isolated or they've got into a poor ball presentation position. Again, not held, no change in the focus here. They've clearly got to be held and brought to ground in a tackle. As we mentioned, the tackler's got to release. As soon as they're brought to ground and tackled, they've got to release the ball and present it. And positively, if they can release, stand up and pick the ball up to play on, that's great, because we can move on from there. We've got to not necessarily reward the positive play, but allow the positive play to continue. And then the jackler, which there's been a slight, probably say not really a change in this area, but we're looking to probably reward him that little bit quicker. And that's probably the protection of people flying in and clearing them out, which is probably a little bit more dangerous. We look to protect the jackler that little bit more. So they're still got to be in a strong position, on their feet, supporting their body weight, hands not gone beyond the ball or on their elbows, and they're showing a clear lift of the ball. And we're looking to reward them a little bit earlier. And this is probably where, in the at the start of the Premiership, start of the Southern Hemisphere, these penalties were given really, really quickly, and they probably weren't as accurate as what we want them to be. We still want them to be given quicker, but we want them to be over the ball, a good tug at the ball, and then we reward them. It's not a case of over the ball, quick tug, yeah, okay, we reward you. Well, that's where we get a lot more penalties in the game, where we almost, again, use this phrase a little bit, let it breathe, just let it breathe for a second or two, let them lift the ball, yeah, happy days, we can reward them now. We don't want to reward that just over, quick lift, then cleared straight away. That's not what we're looking to do. And obviously they've got to enter the breakdown legally. And probably going on to that holding on part of it as well. Ball carrier must not prevent a turnover, must release the ball. Jack and Michelle, clear lift in action as mentioned. Arms and elbow clearly off the ground, and in that clamp, seal, strong position. And again, you hear this sort of phrase of hands on. If you go past over the ball, say a player's trying to turn and present the ball, and you see a player go over with his hands on the ground, we don't look at hands on the ground necessarily as off their feet. In that split second, I use it and a few other people use it as they're searching for the ball. They're actually trying to actively search for the ball. They put their hands briefly on the ground, then they go onto the ball and show that clear lift. What we're not looking for is the players. I think a good few years ago, Sam Warburton used to go way past the ball, wait for the clear, and his hands would drag back onto the ball and try and lift it. And that's what we're trying to prevent from happening, going clearly beyond it and coming back onto it, not actually near the ball and search of the ball, and you're still in a strong position to steal it and give that clear lift. Here shows one for the Leicester game. And we used to hear the phrase that you didn't survive the clear out, so we're going to play on. It's not about surviving the clear out now. It's about being in that strong position over the ball. The tackler's not there. He's clearly over it, and he almost takes the ball with him. So for me, that's not really changed too much from last year. We would still reward that with last year's interpretation. Same again this year. You're gonna reward the same thing. I think we might get a replay from behind, which I think shows it a little bit better. If it does, yeah, here we go. So he's clearly on his feet. He's not part of the tackle. Down, straight over the ball, good strong position, and takes the ball with him. So, you know, it's a really, really good picture that we want to see to reward. Off feet, attacking players must stay on their feet. So this is, again, to allow a contest for jacklers to come in there, not to seal off and prevent that contest. Because, again, we want to create a contest legally. We don't want it just to be cut off straight away by attacking players off their feet. So this is an example of a good sealing off penalty. So Kieran Brooks clearly goes off his feet and prevents the red player from going over the ball. So he's gone directly off his feet. We want to see him coming, arriving, either clearing or on his feet to create that ruck or tackle offside line situation, which he doesn't do there. But that doesn't mean that everybody's off their feet when they're looking to clear people. I think there's another clip where we use this phrase of drive, not dive. So if there are players on top of the tackler, you can still clear that player by going, I mean, you say off your feet, but you'll see it here. There's a player, makes the tackle, he's on top of the tackler and he's been cleared out. The guy hasn't done anything negative by trying to stop that competition. He's clearly cleared that player out on the floor and we play on. What we might get sometimes is we get that situation where the jackler goes to go for the ball in a jackal situation. He dummies and he comes out. Then you see that off-feet situation. And that's where we're going to play on. We're not going to reward the defence there where they almost come in, step out, and they cause that player to go off feet. We're looking for that negative action where there's clearly where they prevented any sort of contest. And again, that's similar. And probably the hardest part of this off feet is when you get the latches, when you get latches close to the line or doing pick and goes where they go off their feet, but then we're looking for them to reload. If they don't reload quick enough, and there's a player there to try and compete for the ball, that's where we potentially might be looking to penalise and go, listen, I need to see something positive from you. I need you to reload. I need you to step back up so we can allow that contest. And sometimes we see a jackler go over that player and steal the ball, which he's obviously legally allowed to do because there's no ruck or tackle offside line situation occurred because no one's on their feet. And then attacking entry, again, this is something which has probably been a bit more prevalent this year. We're looking at players to come in, arrive from their own goal line and be square to the tackle zone. And again, sometimes this is really difficult. Again, it's about where you position. Can you see the whole situation? And sometimes you're going to miss these. It's just inevitable. You can't see everything. We look at this thing called the L shape, which one we on it is. It's not about where they end up. It's about how they arrive. So they might end up really looking like they've come in the side, that kind of in and round, but they've actually started square. So they started square, come to the breakdown, and cleared them to the side. We're looking at players who are actually coming in the side and preventing that jackler over the ball. And the only way they've prevented it is by taking the shortcut of not coming all the way around. They've come in the side. But as I mentioned before, if you've got someone rolling away and a player slightly comes in the side, we might sort of offset them and go, listen, the ball's there. He's in the side. He's not all the way, but we've got the ball here. We can play on. We don't need to do anything. And that's about sort of, you know, good management. Again, setting up the game, knowing when you need to blow your whistle, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I think we've got to. So this one's probably really, really clear. He's kind of overrun the breakdown, which you normally see, and then he's taken out the Leicester player. And that's what you normally see. You normally see a player who's overrun the breakdown, looked at that support line, got the offload, not quite got it, and he's panicked and come back and he's come in the side. And I think we see a replay of this, so it probably takes a few seconds.
Well, no, actually, I saw Ben in training a few times, so he's got like 5 or 10 that could rival it, but...
There we go, so he's slightly overrun the breakdown. Seven's going to be over there to compete for the ball, and he's coming at the side. And again, like, as I said, with all these breakdown things, we don't want to penalise everything. We don't want to blow our whistle for everything, or otherwise we'll have 40, 50 penalties a game. We've got to be able to be good enough to see the breakdown and referee and interpret what, and I wouldn't say what matters, but is the ball there? Has anything done really, as I said, have they not rolled away? Have they come slightly in the side? Have they prevented anything? We play the ball away. And it might just be a quiet word next time, listen, you were slightly in the side there. I need you to do a little bit better next time. And that's where the management situation comes in as well with the refereeing. And then, as anything, as we know, foul play or override any technical penalty. So any holding on penalty or anything like that, or not rolling away. If someone comes in dangerously with a shoulder charge, neck grabs, neck rolls, lifting legs and clearing them dangerously, that overrides all these sort of situations. And that's what we've got to be vigilant to when we're looking at, obviously, the breakdown. And again, that comes down to positioning and being where you can see the whole breakdown, see the ball, see players arriving and trying to see everything. And again, you're not going to get everything. As we said, these happen 1, 2, 3 seconds. You're not going to get everything. And that's where sometimes your team of 3 can help you, where you've got your ARs, if you have them, where they can help with these sort of neck grabs, these charges and stuff like that. So, you're not going to get everything, but this is something that you want to try and get, because again, we get it out of the game. As I sort of mentioned before, nothing has really changed at the breakdown. It's that probably trying to be a little bit more vigilant, a little bit more strict with what we're refereeing, and then refereeing the holding on that little bit quicker to protect the jackler from having to survive that clear out with 2 or 3 big guys coming in from distance and clearing them out. But again, as it comes down to everything, it's how you set up the game, the story of the game, how you want to referee, and what style of referee you're going to be. And that's what your philosophy, and you've got to stick with your philosophy on how you want to referee that breakdown and other things as you go forward, and what type of game you want out of the game. And as I said, you don't always have to blow your whistle. There's times where you can manage it, you can talk to players and stop them from doing it, but you've got to be in that position and that ability to be able to do that.